I've spent the last week on various social media platforms exploring the dominant theories among Trump voters for how the election was rigged against him, and one particularly persistent theory has caught my attention. Before this year's election, you'd probably only heard of Dominion voting systems if you're a regular watcher of John Oliver or a reader of a lot of white papers on voting. But that all changed on November 12th when Trump tweeted a lie that Dominion voting systems had fraudulently switched millions of votes from himself to Joe Biden and cost him the election. Now I can't talk to a single Trump voter without them asserting as truth that Dominion swung the election, despite there being absolutely no evidence of this, much less proof. And this made me curious. How does such a broad population of people come to believe such a flimsy lie so quickly? Social media has fundamentally changed the way that many of us follow election night. We aren't all simply watching TV to see the results come in anymore. Instead, we can follow reporters on the ground via Twitter and other social media platforms to track vote counts as they're tabulated. However, there's a real danger in doing this without having an in-depth understanding about how all of that works. At the very least, there's a danger in pursuing this endeavor without having an open mind around not knowing exactly what you're looking at. And this danger was realized on multiple levels during this election, one of which resulted in the Dominion voting system's conspiracy theory. The primary, most fundamental thing that folks have to remember when following these results are that they're preliminary. And they're considered preliminary for a very good reason. There are a lot of humans that are involved in these counts, which means that human error will inevitably occur. Most of those errors are found before the initial count has concluded, but after that, the ballots are canvassed and double checked for any other mistakes. That's why there's such a long period of time between when the polls close and the deadline for when the state needs to certify their vote totals. When we're watching the vote tallies come in real time, we need to allow for errors and corrections to happen in real time as well. But not everyone got this memo. In Antrim County, Michigan, the software on the voting machines being used was not updated before election night. The missing update didn't affect the software's ability to count ballots correctly, however, it did cause a glitch when combining those counts and tabulating them. This error was noticed and corrected the night of the count, but even if it hadn't been, it would have been caught during the canvass afterwards. Anyway, this glitch first became apparent when the solidly red county of Antrim produced a win for Biden. Unfortunately, self-appointed internet detectives noticed it too, and they interpreted it as vote rigging. So they had their fraud now. Now they just needed to find a culprit, because you can't have a conspiracy without conspirators. Social media posts then began to exaggerate a philanthropic commitment between Dominion voting systems, the voting systems used in Antrim County, and the Clinton Foundation. See, the Clinton Foundation is to right-wing conspiracy theories as vodka is to Red Bull. It isn't absolutely necessary, but it sure helps get the job done. And just to be clear, Dominion's donation to the Clinton Foundation was a pledge to donate its technology to emerging democracies back in 2014. Dominion lobbyists also donated $75,000 to the foundation in that year, but they also donated to Mitch McConnell. These posts went on to point out that Dominion also hires as a lobbyist Nancy Pelosi's former chief of staff. They leave out, however, that they also hire lobbyists who used to work for John Boehner, Dick Cheney, and Brian Kemp. Anyway, these posts eventually made their way back to One America News Network, a propaganda network for the America right wing, who has never shied away from spreading conspiracy theories and publicly prides themselves as being one of the president's greatest supporters. They ran a television report on the topic, and then 28 minutes later, Donald Trump posted this tweet. Twitter flagged the tweet, but the damage had already been done. As far as Trump supporters were concerned, as soon as that tweet went out, the content was good as gospel. It didn't stop there, though. See, there are federal agencies within our federal government who seek to ensure the digital security of government functions. Up until 2018, that responsibility had resided within the Department of Homeland Security. Then Donald Trump signed the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency Act of 2018, which created CISA to operate as a standalone federal agency, albeit still an operational component of DHS. Included in the mandate of this agency was to improve the cybersecurity of elections. Christopher Krebs was appointed as the first director of CISA. The conspiracy theory didn't stay confined to fringe right-wing media outlets and Donald Trump's Twitter feed. Soon, Sidney Powell, an attorney for Donald Trump, and Michael Flynn, who is also one of the lawyers attempting to invalidate votes in a few states on Trump's behalf, was on Fox News with Lou Dobbs and Maria Bartiromo, claiming that a secret government supercomputer program had switched votes from Trump to Biden in the election. Apparently, this government supercomputer was so secret that the president himself didn't know about it until after the election. Rudy Giuliani even went as far as to say that he was able to contact whistleblowers from Dominion, although evidence of that is still yet to surface. Now, if these claims were true, that would have severe and detrimental implications for American cybersecurity. So CISA and 58 other election security experts released a statement that all of the claims of fraud that they were privy to were not substantiated, if not completely technically incoherent. They went on to say that to their knowledge, this had been the most secure election of all time. Krebs later went on to retweet this claim, at which point he was fired by Trump on Twitter, because debunking the president's conspiracy theories will not be tolerated. So how does this happen? How does a theory that is so easily debunked gain so much traction? How do they become so widely believed when they can be so easily disproven? Remember, in Georgia, they did a hand recount, and in Georgia, they used Dominion voting systems. They didn't find any irregularities from those systems, but still, people believe this. Many people point to social media. Conspiracy theories aren't new, but the scale and speed at which they can travel is. That theory may have merits, but a working paper from Harvard University contends that there's more to it. This group of researchers at Harvard have been looking at specifically why so many people believe that voter fraud is a problem despite there being no tangible evidence for that claim. Their work posits that the primary problem with the spread of this information isn't social media, but politicians and media elites themselves. Rumors and theories spread about election and voter fraud all the time. However, most of them remain relegated to the fringes of the internet until politicians like Donald Trump or elite media figures like Tucker Carlson repeat them. Social media platforms amplify content from politicians, media elites, and news outlet wire services like the Associated Press more than posts from just the everyday person. This Harvard group has noticed that it's actually quite difficult for conspiracy theory to reach critical mass without one or more of these types repeating the theory. The largest spikes in social media activity around claims of voter fraud are when Donald Trump himself has made them on social media or on television. At any given time, the most retweeted or shared posts about voter fraud on Twitter or Facebook are from the president himself or right-wing media elites like Dan Bongino or Fox News. One of the single highest peaks of misinformation was in May when Trump posted this tweet claiming that there is no way mail-in ballots will be anything less than substantially fraudulent. He made that up. It's complete fiction, but he is the most trusted politician on the American right, and there was no pushback by elite media figures on the right. In fact, those media elites and other right-wing political elites entertained the idea, if not wholly endorsed it. So now the right believes it. The problem isn't necessarily right-wing social media. The problem is right-wing politicians and right-wing media elites don't tell the truth and actively participate in or manufacture the lies themselves. It's no longer the guy at the end of the bar that's saying American elections have fallen victim to a plot hatched by long-dead Venezuelan leader Hugo Chavez. It's the president's lawyer on national television, if not the president himself. And there are barely any other Republican elected officials willing to stand up and say that he's lying. So when other elected politicians from the other side do so, they're easily just smeared as being partisan. If social media platforms really want to address this problem, they can't try to moderate misinformation and disinformation on a post-by-post basis. They can't treat politicians differently than they would treat other prominent figures. If a president is using a platform to undermine democracy, if he's showing a pattern of behavior of using the platform to launch lies and disinformation, they need to ban him. It's fair to be concerned about the politics of such a ban, but they need to ask themselves which principles they value more: the appearance of being apolitical, or the refusal to let their platform be used to deceive people with alarming efficiency. Traditional media has a similar dilemma. While the Harvard researchers found no examples of those wire services like the AP we talked about earlier participating in the spread of misinformation or lies, they did note a detrimental reflex to present the reader with a false sense of balance, the both sides approach, if you will. They hesitate to affirmatively label lies what they are, and they hesitate to let the true scale and asymmetry of the line be represented in their reporting because they don't want to seem biased. This gives the reader a warped sense of how prevalent and brazen the lying has actually become on the right. But more to the point, we're missing the real source of the problem if we blame the technology. The real problem is that too many conservative elites, be they politics or media, have decided that it's in their best interest to participate, enable, and manufacture lies and present them to their audiences as truth. When Tucker Carlson gets on TV and says that 85% of the people who got COVID-19 in July were wearing a mask, a lie, it's not to inform people, it's to take advantage of them. We know this because when Carlson was sued in federal court for slander, his lawyers argued that viewers shouldn't take what Carlson reports as fact, even though if you watch his show, he will unequivocally tell you that he's telling you the objective truth. Similarly, when Donald Trump goes on Twitter and tells you that thousands of dead Americans voted, which is a lie, he's not trying to inform people, he's trying to take advantage of them. We know this because when his lawyers go into court where their lies are punishable under law, no such claims are made. When they target districts and counties to invalidate their votes, they're not targeting places that Dominion voting systems were used. They're targeting places where large concentrations of black voters are, because they can't lie there. We're not dealing with a crisis of truth. We're dealing with a crisis of leadership. To date, Mitt Romney and Ben Sasse are the only Republican politicians of any notoriety that have affirmatively acknowledged that what Trump is doing is lying and that those lies are dangerous. But the rest of the party could end this now if they wanted to. Elected Republican politicians from the House to the Senate to governors' mansions across the country could tell the American people that this is wrong, that the American Republic, American democracy, and the American Constitution are more important than power, certainly more important than Donald Trump. Hell, maybe they've lost their chance. Maybe it's too late for that, but they could still try, and they aren't. That's our problem. That's our crisis. I know that was a lot. I hope I didn't go too fast. I'm trying really hard to keep these videos close to 10 minutes because we were getting carried away on the length there for a while. But the main takeaway I took from researching this video, what I'm still thinking about afterwards, is the hardest part about solving this problem will be dealing with the false equivalency issue. The fact of the matter is this really isn't happening on the left like it is on the right. You don't have Democratic politicians and leaders signing on to the most extreme views of the left. When politicians go on Bill Maher and he tells them that he's convinced that Trump's going to try to stage a military coup when it's time for Joe Biden to take office, they don't fuel that. They tell him to calm down, that the institutions will hold. The right is uniquely trying to foster radical extremism, real radical extremism. Remember, Kyle Rittenhouse was not Black Lives Matter. He was not Antifa. The people that were plotting to kidnap and publicly execute Gretchen Whitmer in Michigan were not Black Lives Matter and were not Antifa. This is a real thing. We have the real seeds for a frankly white conservative Christian radical extremist movement to happen in the US in a way that we probably haven't seen since the 90s. And we really need to take it seriously because, as we've seen across the world, bad things can happen if you don't keep that kind of stuff in check. But at the end of the day, like I said in the main body of the video, we're relying on the conservative leaders to get this done. Who knows? Maybe they can. Anyway, I'm Gerard LeConte. Thanks for stopping by for another week. Take care of yourself, and we'll see you next Sunday.